Hey good people, today this is gonna be such an important video because I'm gonna show you how to get and render beef tallow. So beef tallow, here you have it. This is the most important part of my diet, and it should be the most important part of any person's diet, okay? Coconut oil is great as well, but it's more expensive and it's not as saturated as pure beef tallow. So I would really get some beef tallow. It's super cheap. It's heat stable, meaning you can cook it on really high temperature and not have to worry about the heat oxidizing the fats, which you will have to worry about even with something as stable as coconut butter. I actually avoid using coconut butter to cook any of my foods because I am afraid that it oxidizes. But it should be pretty heat stable, so you can probably use that as well. But go for beef tallow. It's super nutrient dense, full of vitamins and really important fatty acids. And also I call this fat a pro-metabolic fat. It's a pro-metabolic food because when we have saturated fat building up our cell membrane and building the infrastructure of our biology, we increase our metabolic rate. We increase the metabolic efficiency at which we produce ATP. So it's extremely important to emphasize saturated fats in your diet. I know this is contrary to what you have been told by health experts, right? Health experts have been very concerned about cholesterol, which we now know is not the bad guys. These guys try to save you from an underlying issue. If you want more information on that, let me know in the comments and I'll gladly make an episode on cholesterol. But though polyunsaturated fats are very low in cholesterol, that doesn't make them healthy fats. Quite the contrary. Cholesterol is extremely important for your biology. Okay, let's get back into the tallow rendering here. So first off, how you get this fat is that you grab your phone, you call down the nearest butcher to you, and you tell them, I need so and so many kilos or pounds or whatever your measurements are of tallow. And they will ask you, do you want it, rendered, or how do you want it? You just tell them, I just want the pure beef fat. Not rendered, not anything. That's how you get it the cheapest, and then you can render it yourself. And it's so easy, it doesn't take a lot of time. Make sure that your butcher, of course, gets his beef fat from free-range, grass-fed, grass-finished cows. Most butchers get that because if not, they would be out of business. But just make sure that that's the case, okay? So now when it gets to preparing your beef fat, you will get it as strings such as these beautiful strings of beef fat, and what you will do is that you will cut them into kind of about 1.5 centimeters to an inch width. Make sure to cut all of them in the same width so that some doesn't get burned while others are not cooked. So now when you come over here, you have how it's cooking. So what I do is that I take the beef fat that has been cut into slices and I put it in a pot. Now I'm gonna chop up the rest of the beef fat here and I'm gonna put all of it inside of this pot. Then I'm gonna take a glass of water, about 2 cups I would say of water, and put it inside of this pot just so that it has some water to keep it hot and help it melt so that it doesn't burn to the bottom of the pot. And then as we go, I'm just gonna, keep my eyes on it. Remember, when you're burning oil, it's extremely important to always be near it. Don't let your eyes off it. I always put a timer just every 10 minutes. I go back and I just turn it around a little bit. You don't want to leave it standing. I have done this many times and it's really dangerous. It's really dangerous. If you burn your oil, it's gonna get so fucking hot that if you don't have a good pot, it might blow the whole pot. And you might start a fire in your kitchen, okay? You keep your fucking eyes on the pot and you go look at it. Really look at it and swirl it around. Even though it doesn't need it, you do that every 10 minutes because if you don't, you're gonna get lost in the world and it's gonna burn and blow up your whole house. Okay, so let's go and swirl the pot a little bit. So as you can see, the water is really helping it melt in here. It's super good to put a little water in. The water is gonna evaporate in the end anyway, so don't worry about getting water in your fat, if you would worry about such a thing. Alright, so now we have it on the stove. And so what I do is that, of course, when I have put in the water, I turn it up on the highest heat and just wait until I can hear that the water starts to boil. As soon as I hear the water boiling, I put it down on medium heat, okay? Now, when you can see that a lot of the fat actually has started to melt in the pot, you can then turn it down to low heat, because the melted fat keeps heat like a bastard. So just keeping it on low heat is gonna save you energy, but also it's just gonna keep enough heat to keep that fat hot that will then melt the other fat. Also, you avoid oxidizing the fat, which you can do if you just turn up the heat, okay? So here we have it, the final product. Here you can see how it looks when it has hardened. So this one has been cooled since yesterday when it actually was done. And this one I just poured right now. So what I do is that it takes 2 hours about rendering the fat. You don't want to pour, of course, super hot fat into glass containers. It might crack the glass, right? As a general rule of thumb, what I've started to do is that I just leave the fat to cool down. When it has cooled down, I will then pour it onto the containers. Yesterday I got caught up in a lot of things, and so I actually just left it to cool down over the night. So here in the morning I just gave it a little bit of heat so it melted, and then I poured it into these glass containers. What you end up with is both the rendered fat that is super good for cooking, so you just scoop some up on the pan, super delicious, can stand high heat, and then you end up also with these that in Denmark we call fedtegræver. I don't know what they're called anywhere else around the world, but it's super delicious, and I use it for when I make my eggs in the morning. I actually just don't use the fat, but I just use these instead. I just crumble them on the pan, wait until they give some fat to the pan, then I put my eggs in, and it becomes this delicious egg with some crunchy fat in it. It's super good. Definitely recommend you doing that. Else you can put it on top of any toast. You know, just heat it on the pan so it becomes crunchy and a little melty, and you put it on top of your toast. Super good. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Kaljo, this takes way too long. I don't have the time. And I have to say to you, it doesn't. It took me about 10 minutes to cut up the fat, and I had 3 kilograms of tallow. Probably you will just buy 2 kilograms, but it's because I want to use some of it for making some beef liver pate. So 10 minutes chopping it up, putting it in the pot, just letting it melt by itself. It takes 2 hours to melt, but you are doing all sorts of other things, remembering the timer, remembering to keep your eyes on the pot. So that's 10 minutes, it's 2 hours, and then you just leave it to settle, to cool down. That doesn't require any of your time, right? Takes about 3-4 hours, and then you pour it on the glass containers. And pour it on the glass containers. Come on guys, that doesn't take more than, again, 10 minutes. So this is not really time consuming. That's not your issue. Your issue is that you haven't done it yet. You just need to go do it, and then you see it's easy as it sounds. Price wise, this is 50 kroner, so a little less. It's about $8 per kilogram, and if you need 2 kilograms, that's $16, around $15-16 probably, and this lasts you for well over 2 months. Okay guys, that is super cost efficient. It's time efficient, and it's cost efficient, and it's healthy. What's not to like? That's it.
Get your tallow today.
So there you have it. Making, rendering, and using tallow. Get yours, get your tallow.